Yo, what's up everyone? A new episode today. Actually, once again, go dig deeper into one of the things that I've been observing, having been back in Hong Kong for the last couple of years, especially regarding the way of how the culture has moved, but more importantly, bridging it and linking it to the rest of the world. And for the longest time now, I've always been wondering the link between Hong Kong and the Wu-Tang Clan, right? And as you guys all know, Wu-Tang founder, spiritual leader, founder, RZA, was really into the whole 香港邵氏嘅武俠少林電影 back of the 70s and 80s, right? Shaw Brothers movie. If you have watched the Wu-Tang saga from Hulu a few years back, or even dating all the way back when Wu-Tang started back in 93, 94 in New York, you would know these Staten Island natives had been glued to watching 少林電影 for the longest time, right? I was quite born around that time, right? But obviously too young to understand or appreciate those type of movie. But it was funny because when actually Wu-Tang came out in 93, 94, obviously I was still in Australia, thinking and hearing the story of how he was inspired by the Shaw Brother movies actually was probably one of the intriguing moments of my earlier days in getting into hip-hop, of how a Chinese movie and also the culture of 少林寺電影 could actually inspire someone all the way in New York to have come up with a name of first the Wu-Tang Clan, right? How they became a unit that they have been for the last 30 motherfucking years, you know? It's impossible. You would never have thought that, right? Now, as you can tell, all around me, Wu-Tang everywhere. T-shirt, poster. Now, I got this off the official website, okay? So legit, it's real stuff, you know what I mean? Tote bag as well, off that school. Back in 2023, 2024. More importantly, however, there hasn't been any real connections from a Hong Kong rapper, local hip-hop scene to and with the Wu-Tang over the years. Now, just going back a little, now a couple of weeks ago, I think, back a month and a half ago, went to Some Shui Po and check out the 2-year anniversary of the amazing Creative Crew unit who were jamming and breaking and scratching and for the whole afternoon. Now I was talking to a couple of DJs there, Kendrick and a few others, and we talked about how some of the older sounds have been missing in Hong Kong as well, like the older hip-hop sound of the 90s missing in Hong Kong as well. And so as they were playing Wu-Tang as part of the mix, I was like, shit man, why wasn't there anything that were actually immediately attached with the Wu-Tang in the 90s, I would have loved to have seen that journey of the past 30 years carry through, and even when I was talking to the DJs shout out to Yeez as well, Kaloban, for having such an amazing spot for keeping the hip-hop DJ culture alive, literally. Why hasn't there been any collaborations or even songs or even like movies? Obviously, Gun Fist and all that, RZA produced that, but that's sort of on a movie front, but not really involved with Hong Kong, right? So that to me is a really mysteriously weird mystery, right? 點解一個咁同 hip hop 有咁乸大關係嘅組合，同香港有關係嘅組合，竟然喺呢30幾年係冇真正去有個構埋一齊去創作 hip hop 嘅歷史喺香港嘅部分之一。But then if you think about how in Japan, Awish is literally waiting for Awish to shout out to the Japanese rap queen, right? Literally waiting for her album to drop this year has been produced by RZA, right? So And then even in hearing her story of how she met up with RZA years ago, in talking about how she was somebody who showed RZA around Japan's hip-hop scene. And we've seen a few tracks coming from the album already, right? Wax On, Wax Off, and Butcher Shop. It's only 2 tracks, but that's been the only 2 that we've heard over the last 7 or 8 months since we have known about the project. Now, coming back to Hong Kong a little bit, there surely has to be ways to link with Wu-Tang and also link with the rappers in Hong Kong, the current scene right now. I can certainly think of a few that can not just bridging, interpreting of that era for one, but also bringing it into today's world and the future. We all know Wu-Tang is for the children, right? Literally, how can we bring that bridge and also getting anyone of the Wu-Tang member to come and work with the crew or anyone in this part of the world, in particular Hong Kong, right? So, you know, if there's any idea, if anyone has any idea of actually doing that, let me know. But I certainly have a couple of creative ideas to link already, you know, music creation and, you know, lyrics and also rap style to work with Wu-Tang and create something for the current generation. I mean, I don't want this collaboration or whatnot to become something that reminds us of how Wu-Tang were back in the 1990s. I want this something to be representing now and going forward, and hopefully also allow it to forge more collaborations and connections with the US hip-hop scene. But like I said, you know, touring is one part, but how do we make good cultural exchange and cultural relevance as well as artistic collaboration? That linkage, I think it has to happen now sooner rather than later, because time don't wait. Now, obviously, in Hong Kong, we don't have those type of Shaolin movies anymore, but that doesn't mean producers or movie directors or creative directors from Hong Kong cannot create something with New York to build something that is of one, cultural relevance, 2, putting Hong Kong's hip-hop scene on the map internationally, and 3, taking some of these young rappers from town to experience the world and then keep connecting the rest of the world. In Cantonese, in English, whatever, you know. This is what I'm talking about, you know. And thanks to the good soul that gave me this little picture from Coconut Flap a few years ago, man, you know. To me, that is fucking historic. I doubt that we'll be able to get the whole most parts of the Wu-Tang Clan to come over to Hong Kong to do this again. But you never know, right? But I think this is interesting because if you draw the parallel of what he did with Shaolin movies to when I was a kid watching LL Cool J's, MC Hammer, and, you know, Heavy D's, NWA, Dr. Dre, Snoop, Pac, Biggie, and all those. You know, when I was glued to MTV in Melbourne to watch them, it's almost similar. I mean, obviously, I'm not him, like shit, you know, but it's about influencing the way of how something that you enjoy as an entertainment or as music or something that's actually changed the way of how you see and operate and create and believe in doing something different. Let's go back to talk about the Fader Crew DJs of the other month when I went down to Sumside Bowl. I think, you know, to me it's not so much about, oh, let's just keep the old sound and throw out the new. You know, if you think about clips, how they've sort of semi-reinvented themselves this year, right? With Let God Sort Mouth. I really love to also understand and hear your point of view on how you see it. Like if you happen to be American and you live through the era of Wu-Tang and knowing the stories of how they were inspired by the movies from Hong Kong, from Shaw Brothers. Did you then also think about, well, how the hell and what is hip-hop scene in Hong Kong? What would that be like? Did you ever explore in Chinatown in New York or LA or Melbourne or wherever to understand more about the Shaolin temple and all that stuff that RZA was so glued to when he was a kid? To me, at the grassroots or at the entertainment and cultural exchange level, I see there's a lot that we can do. This is maybe is an alternative to engage different artists and rappers and producers and musicians and OGs and young Gs and young blood and whatnot through the airwaves to collaborate and to do show and to talk and to chat and to connect. I think that's really important. Until the next episode, see ya. Woof.
Generate by AI.